What's up everyone, I am Tim Oates on bass, and this video is about balancing multiple bands. Okay, so this video is about how to balance being in multiple bands, and everyone handles this differently, so this is purely going to be my perspective, my experience. So for instance, there are musicians out there that make their living playing music, so the way that they do that is they're in multiple projects. And when I say multiple, I mean like 4 or 5. And they're playing out, all different nights of the week, different styles, and I'm sure they have an approach that's very different than mine, because for me, I'm very busy. I have a day job, I have kids, I've got other obligations. So I'm in 2 bands because I love playing music, I love being in bands, but my time is very limited. So I have to find a way to compartmentalize the different bands and make sure that I'm focusing and giving everything that I need into each of the bands with the limited amount of time that I have. So my first band is Bird and Affinity. I've actually featured them on this channel before. If you want to check out that video where I do a full breakdown of one of our songs, check it out right there. So Bird and Affinity is going to be more hard rock, hints of metal, elements of prog, right? A little more complicated song structure, things like that. And the other band is Four Penny Coffin. I have not featured Four Penny Coffin on this channel, but next week I will be doing a full song breakdown. So if you haven't already subscribed, make sure to subscribe and ring the little bell so you get notified when that video comes out. But Four Penny Coffin, it's going to be more of kind of a straightforward rock band. Kind of like your 3-minute, just radio-friendly bangers, things like that. And of course, in both of these cases, both bands, these are generalizations. All right, so the first thing when I decided I was going to be in a second band is establish boundaries. And Bird and Affinity was my first band, so I had to make sure that the guys in Four Penny Coffin knew that my primary focus is Bird and Affinity. But I will still take Four Penny Coffin seriously, and I do. I take it very serious, but if both bands are offered a gig on the same night, I'm going to tell Four Penny Coffin that I'm not available so I can play the show with Bird and Affinity. Hasn't happened yet, but they know that that's the case, and in fact, everyone in Four Penny Coffin is in another band, so they all understand that you've got to put your priorities somewhere. But establishing those boundaries up front, that was really important to me, so that way I never had to have that conversation halfway down the line of, well, where are your priorities? I've already said that. That's known, everyone gets it, there's no surprises. So the next thing is equipment. Now I'm fortunate enough that I can have multiple basses, so I actually have a dedicated bass that I use for Bird and Affinity, which is my 5-string Music Man, and then I have my dedicated Four Penny Coffin bass, which is my 4-string Hamer Cruise bass. One of the biggest reasons for this is the tuning is different. So in Bird and Affinity, we play everything in drop C with the occasional drop B song, whereas Four Penny Coffin is actually in drop D with the occasional song in standard. So going from potentially drop B to standard on the same bass is just not going to work out, especially the way I have this guy tuned. Probably actually spend quite a bit of time talking about the way that I tune my bass for Bird and Affinity. If you're interested in seeing something like that, talking about tunings and how you pick your strings for tunings and things like that, drop a comment, let me know, and I'll put together a video for that. But without spending too much time on that now, there's just no way that I could make this a standard bass as well to be able to handle the drop D. So luckily I have multiple basses. I was able to dedicate one for each band, but it definitely helps me to get the bass ready for practice or for gigs, to kind of get in the mindset of what the music's going to be and what the band's going to be in the songs. The other thing too is these basses are different, right? So the Music Man is definitely going to be geared more towards, heavier music. It's got active pickups. It'll actually sit in the mix better, so it kind of provides more of that support and filling out the sound. The Hamer is passive electronics. It's more of a jazz bass style, and the tone, it'll actually kind of rip through a mix. I actually tried bringing this bass out for Bird and Affinity early on when I first started with the band, and it didn't work. That's a 5-piece band, there's 2 guitars, there's a lot going on, and to have the bass just constantly rip through at the top of the mix just didn't work. It didn't make sense for the music. Whereas for Four Penny Coffin, there's still 2 guitars. It's a 4-piece, the singer plays guitar at the same time, but there's not necessarily as much going on the same way, right? It's not kind of those heavy, sometimes metal licks. It's more of your straightforward rock. And oftentimes the singer will actually not play guitar during the verses. simply because he's singing and trying to create some dynamics. So by having the guitars get thinned out a little bit in certain spots and then come back in, it'll create more of a dynamic throughout the song. But what that does is, in parts, it almost feels like a three-piece because there's one guitar playing, and the bass will oftentimes have to kind of drive some of it. So because of that, having a bass that will actually rip through the mix and kind of come up and really shine definitely makes way more sense. So the tone for each of these basses matches the bands that they're in perfectly. And like I said, I'm fortunate enough to have multiple basses, and I had kind of the perfect basses for each band. All right, so even the amp situation's a little bit different. For Burden Affinity, we recently went to an in-ear monitor system, so we're actually not running cabs, any of us. It's all being run through our pedal boards into a digital mixer through in-ear monitors and then out to front of house. Whereas for Four Penny Coffin, we don't bring the digital mixer. We don't have the inner system available for practice, so I actually have it's kind of a little combo amp, and I still run my DI out of my pedal board for the front of house and for the monitors. But what I do is, because I don't have the reliable monitoring system live, I bring a practice amp. It's actually the amp that I use for this videos, but it's just loud enough that I can just point it at me. It's got the wedge kickback option, so I can just have it pointed at me. No one else needs to hear it, but for on stage, it makes sure that I can hear myself while I play. So I literally have a different setup I'm bringing for each band for different purposes. The only thing that's the same is the pedal board, but I actually know other musicians that will have a dedicated pedal board for each band they're in, just depending on what they're doing and depending on what they have available. Okay, so the next way that I navigate being in multiple bands is I actually have different roles in each band. Yes, I'm a bass player, and yes, that has its own natural purpose in a band, but there's definitely some nuance there that is a little different. So for instance, in Burden Affinity, it's a 5-piece band. There's a lot going on. The music tends to be a little bit more complex, and the two guitar players in the band are both pretty phenomenal and both, trying to really add as much as they can to the music. So my purpose in Burden Affinity is definitely more to fill out the sound, provide that low end, support the music up. I do have my moments where I'm able to kind of step out front a little bit, provide a little bit more melody, get some more complicated runs in, things like that. But for the most part, I'm there to work with the rhythm section, to work with the drummer, to just kind of provide that spine and just fill it out. Whereas in Four Penny Coffin, it's a 4-piece band, but there's still 2 guitars. The difference is the lead singer is actually playing guitar, and what that means is he'll oftentimes drop out. And the nature of the music, it's not quite as heavy. So what happens is, a lot of times, especially during the verses, the bass is kind of the primary instrument that's keeping the music together. The one guitar that is playing is, oftentimes kind of going in and out of the chordal structure, or just providing like an ambient overlay. And the actual chordal structure is being done just on the bass. I'm much more worried about being really locked into the drummer, like making sure that I'm attacking consistently and driving music the way I need to in Four Penny Coffin. Whereas with Burden Affinity, I know that on some of the heavier parts, the way that the bass is being supported, it's really more to fill up the sound. So therefore, if I'm off a little bit and I'm not perfect on my timing, it might get lost in the mix. And sometimes that does happen live. Never enough that anyone notices, but I noticed because I'm playing it and I know I was a little behind the beat there. So it's a very different approach in terms of what I'm focused on while I'm playing and while I'm writing. So, and lastly, I have different personal goals for each band. Obviously, for each band, I want to provide the best music, provide the best bass lines that I can. But for Burden Affinity, I'm really trying to stretch my writing style as much as possible. I want to make sure I elevate the song. I want to make sure that I'm working with the other instruments in such a way that the lines that I'm coming up with can really create some cool dynamics, get some cool runs, things like that. Because of the nature of my role in Four Penny Coffin is different, in order to stretch myself and to achieve some of the goals I have, it's actually a little different. My right hand. I actually focus on my right hand, so I'm a finger player, but I deliberately play with a pick in Four Penny Coffin for 2 reasons. One, I do think the attack of the pick makes more sense in that band, and also I'm not a solid pick player. I am a finger player, so by being in a band where I only play with a pick, it really helps to develop that. My hand is not cramping up like it used to. I'm a little bit looser with it. I used to really clench down because I didn't want to drop the pick because I just didn't play with them enough. I'm getting better with the alternating patterns, things like that. These are things that I need to work on as bass player, and so I use this as a great opportunity so I can stretch myself. And then the other thing is vocals. While I provide vocals in both bands, Bird and Affinity is more kind of in my natural wheelhouse. Provides some of the more aggressive vocals, some of the screams. I do some clean vocals as well, but it's a little bit more in my comfort zone. Whereas with Four Penny Coffin, there's a number of times where I've been asked to provide vocals that I'm not comfortable with. I'm not a singer. I don't consider myself a good vocalist by any means, but this band needs the voice, and I'm able to pull it off enough that they want me to continue to do it and do it live. So that's another way that I'm able to stretch as a musician, is by working on my vocals and working on playing bass while singing, which is not the easiest thing to do. If you're not a singer, playing any instrument and singing at the same time when you're not comfortable with one or the other is tough. So my hat's off to all of the singer players out there. Kudos to you. This is how I approach being in multiple bands. Like I said before, this is just my own personal experience. If you're a musician that's in multiple bands and you have other ways that you handle being in multiple projects, please leave a comment. Let me know what's up. This is just my experience, and I know there are other musicians that handle things very differently than I do. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a like. And if you haven't subscribed yet, please make sure you do that. Ring the bell so you get notified when I post videos. In fact, the next video is actually going to be focusing on a Four Penny Coffin song. There'll be a full breakdown and a play along, so be on the lookout for that next week. Until then, you keep making beautiful music, and I will see you in the next video.